Okay, let's go ahead and do this together, and I will walk and talk at the same time. So we're creating a virtual host, virtual server, whatever you want to call it. So essentially, it's a virtual server. It's a fake server according to Nginx. We can create infinite number of servers on top of our server, which is running on top of a server, which is running on top of a server, which is running on DigitalOcean. Super meta. No one's laughing, so I can tell your brain is at its limit, because that was pretty funny. I had that one saved up. But let's create a virtual server here. So we're going to call it server. Pretty original. That's just what Nginx it's called to create a virtual server. We want it to listen on port 80, not port 90. And we want it to be the default server for all requests that are coming in. And the syntax highlighting here is actually pretty nice. And then we want to listen again, colon port 80, and again, default server. So that colon 80 is just the IPv6. So we're listening on both, just in case we get some requests over IPv6. We're still going to put the root as /var/www. We don't need to, but it'll make a good fallback page just in case. And we can say the root there is index or index.html. There's the files it's going to look for first. Again, we don't really need to do that, but it doesn't hurt to be extra safe. So the server name is actually important. It's important for routing requests. For this particular virtual server, it doesn't matter because this is the default, so all requests are going to go here anyways. However, when we get to the part about creating a subdomain, the server name does matter because that's the request coming in saying, I want to go to test.gemstack.lol or something like that. But in this case, you can keep it blank, or I'm going to say my actual server name. So gemstack.lol, the best of all stacks. Last, we need to make a location block. We talked about location blocks tell Nginx where to route the request to. So in this case, we're going to use that proxy pass directive. So now, instead of being a web server, Nginx is just a proxy. It's going to take the request saying, oh, you need to go here. I know where to go. So proxy pass, HTTP, /127.0.0.1, port 3000. Almost forgot my semicolon. There we go. OK. So did we do something wrong? I don't know. We'll say nginx-t. There's a problem. Nginx.t will run through our configuration and just double check before you restart Nginx and make things bad. It will just validate all your configuration files. So one thing we didn't do is we created a new sites enabled, but we didn't actually link it to anything. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we need to edit our actual Nginx comp file. We're going to remove the default. We're only going to put in the sites enabled for full stack. We don't have to do this. This will just make our life easier. We're not dealing with the default anymore. We don't have to worry about it being caught anymore. So you may have to scroll to find the virtual hosts in your etc nginx conf. And then just delete the one that says etc nginx sites enables default, or anything related to that. We only want our one virtual host running right now. So I will do that now. Of course, I need to sudo this. Don't get caught like me when you make a bunch of changes and you didn't fix it. And I'm like, where is everything? I'm just going to type / and I'll say virtual. Didn't find it. There we go. Case sensitive. Question? Yes.
Could you explain more of why we use Nginx instead of just using Node directly?
Yeah, great question. The question is, why do we use Nginx and not Node directly? Nginx is faster. It's, like I said, it's written in C. It's a lower level language than Node.js, which is written on top of C++, I forget. But it's, I forget what Node.js is built on top. I mean, it's built on top of JavaScript, which is built on top of something else. Nginx has a lot more capabilities than our node server. Like if we want to change where we log, compression, turning on HTTP2, turning on SSL, doing all that in Node, we can do it, but it is a pain in the butt. I've done it before. It's not fun messing with certs. Whereas Nginx, this is all built in because it's its bread and butter. It's what it does all the time. Nginx can handle way more requests and proxy them. It can act as a load balancer. It can do everything Node can do, but much, much faster and much more efficiently. So that's why we use Nginx. When we get to, if we had like say multiple servers we wanted to run, how would you handle that? If I have one Node server and I have a Python server, how would you handle that? Yeah, you can do routing somewhere, but you have to do, at some layer, you have to do the routing to your IP address. So it's better to have this centralized router where everything's maintained and it's just directing the requests out. And when we get to things like subdomains and load balancers, you'll see the real power of Nginx, why this all makes sense. So I'm going to delete this line. Actually, I'm just going to modify it. Because we don't want sites enabled, and we want to be really specific. So we don't want all the sites enabled. We want just the one full stack front end. And let's right quit. Let me just check my own instructions, make sure I didn't do anything wrong. So we want to validate that Nginx configuration, Nginx-T. Cannot open log file, push denied. User directory really makes sense. Maybe I need to sudo that one. OK. So you may have to sudo the Nginx-T because it has to access some of the log files, like var log, which you'd only, or error log, which you'd only access as sudo. So if you sudo Nginx-T, it's just validating you wrote everything correctly. So what's the next thing we do? Anytime we modify a configuration file, we restart the process. So sudo service. What's next? Restart. Restart, reload. And now, let's check it out. Bop. Hey, but we're getting somewhere. One, my domain name's finally hooked up. Yours may not be, but hopefully it's propagated out. But what are we missing?
Port.
No, we got the port. What are we missing? We're not running a server. We never actually started our application. We wrote it, but we never, it's all these steps along the way, and it's really easy to miss these things. So let's go ahead and fire up our node server again. Or let's go back to our server, clear. And we'll just say node app.js. So we started our server. Let's keep it running, and let's switch the window here. Hey, hopefully you're here. There's a lot of in-between steps, which we will simplify in some ways, but congratulations, you did it. You bought a domain, you hooked it up to your server, you created the server from nothing. And I mean nothing, we had to install everything ourselves. We had to hand write all this stuff. We had to hand tune our Nginx configuration. But now it's all connected. Now you're probably in a place that you're much more familiar with as a front-end engineer, which is npm installing some modules, maybe Express, maybe React, and you can build a full web page just from where we're at today. So we got to the place that hopefully most of you are comfortable with. If you want to have fun, you can use npm install create React app or something like that. And you can build a full-fledged service just from the steps we did here. Now, of course, the danger of running that node is running node app.js. It works now, but the minute I close my laptop, I'm going to disconnect that shell, and the shell's going to exit, and it's not going to run anymore. So this is the last step we're going to do today because I want to make sure your web page stays up and running for now. But we're going to install a process manager called PM2. And this is installed globally. I want to make it clear. So we're doing sudo npm i-g to install it globally, PM2. And PM2 is going to keep our node application up and running even if we close the shell, or even if we exit the terminal. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to kill my server now. So sudo, oops, apps, old habit, npm I, PM2. And we'll just say it's a global install. The order doesn't matter. All right. So npm install, this we should be pretty familiar with now. So let's go ahead and PM2, run PM2, start our app.js. And we can set it to watch if we want. Unknown option -t. I don't know why it's -t. I didn't do anything, but that's fine. So let's check it out. PM2, is it lists? Nothing running, so I did something wrong here. PM2 start app.js, maybe take out the watch. There we go. Oh, it's probably -- watch, but that's all right. So now we can say PM2 list. And even if I close my shell right now, it's going to keep the application up and running. Because remember, we're still on the server, and we're just keeping this process alive. But if we say had to reboot our server, something like that, we want to make sure our application comes back online so we don't have to manually do it every single time there's an update or something like that. Fortunately, PM2 is really powerful, so let's just do that. Say PM2 save, which is going to save our current process list, our current configuration. We're going to say PM2 startup. It's going to give us some funky command about adding things to the path. You can just copy this whole command. And this is just adding it to the system daemon on startup. There we go. So now if our server reboots or anything, PM2 is going to bring up our node application, and it's running in perpetuity. Woo!
What about server errors? Like, will the server restart? It's just like I'm just thinking of it like, nodemon locally, like restarting the server anytime there's a file change or anything like that. Does PM2 handle that kind of situation with like errors on the server?
Yeah. So PM2 is always going to, that's what's great about it. If it's a server crashed for some reason, it will always bring it back up. Now, the level of configuration you want on the PM2, whether it sends you an email every time it restarts or just logs it, you generally want to know that. If your server's crashing all the time, you may not detect that because PM2 is just going to keep restarting it in the background and you'll never see it. So you generally want to look at the logs or make sure you're piping the log output to somewhere you can see it, like an email or something like that. But that's a great question. And yeah, that's the danger of a process manager. It can hide a lot of the downsides. And watch, I think it's a -- watch, I'll fix that, will allow you to restart the server if you make a change. So PM2 is really, really nice. It does a lot of hard work for us. And you saw that long path command we had to copy. That would be a pain if we had to do that ourselves. So PM2 just generates that for us, and we just copy and paste.